Oh, another Euro? Ah, yes! Uri Rosenberg, heavy Euro, that's exactly what I want these days. Let's sit down and play. How many of you guys want in? You, Bob, Jimmy, Terry, yeah, what, 5 of us? Yeah, we'll do a 5-player game, that'd be sweet, yeah. Hey guys, welcome to another Broken Meeple episode, and today we're going back to Cult of the Semi-Old. I don't know exactly what you guys would classify as old, but today it's Le Havre. And yeah, Le Havre's probably no secret to anybody who likes Euro games these days. It's been out for a long time under Z-Man's Gal. Now we have the Mayfair reprint. Le Havre is one game that just missed, literally just missed, my top 100 list. I think it was like my 101. So this is a game that I am going to say I really like, but it does have some cons that stop it from going into my top 100. So I'll get onto those a bit later. In Le Havre, you are managing a harbour. You are acquiring resources such as cattle and grain and wood, and you're using those resources in a variety of buildings that will come out throughout the game in a different order every time, along with some special buildings that again are varied every game, and you'll convert them into all sorts of things like meat and leather and charcoal and cooked fish and bread. And while you're doing all this, you're trying to get the most money by the end of the game, and you will ship goods across, to wherever, it's not really specified, but you'll ship them out for victory points, or you can just churn up victory points and money in, the various buildings that you use. You can use other players' buildings by giving them a little treat for doing so, or you can just simply say, you know what, I'm just going to build a massive harbour, and so you acquire a ton of buildings that are all worth money at the end of the game, and try to win that way. There's all sorts of ways that you can play this game in order to win, and it's certainly, like I said, this was in my top 100 a little while ago, and now it's kind of, 101. But Le Havre is a very entertaining Euro. There is a lot of different ways that you can play the game. There's many paths to victory, depending on the buildings themselves, and you can pick what thematic path you feel like. Up to a point. I mean, it's all well and good saying I'm going to be the baker and make loads of bread, but if the building's not going to come up for a while, then probably you might want to think of something else. But you'll usually have quite a few options as you look through those buildings at the start to think, now you know what, this is what I want to do this game. I want to ship out loads of goods. And that freedom of choice is something I like in a good thematic Euro. And this one is reasonably thematic. I mean, the buildings do what you would expect. You do feel like you're managing a harbour. The board looks nice and colourful, as if it is like a harbour, and you're acquiring goods off the ships as they come by. It's a pretty good on the theme aspect. It's definitely a heavy Euro. Now, there are heavier Euros, I think, but this one will require you to have a little read for the rulebook and go, oh, well, I see. It would take a little bit of getting into. But once you're going through the game, it's much more rinse repeat, just with some different buildings that come out over time. And after 1 or 2 games, you'll get it, and you'll be able to teach it and happily play more games. I enjoy the feel of it. I enjoy all that resource management. I also particularly like the way that on your turn, there's usually something useful you need to do. But you want to do everything. It's one of those classic scenarios where I need to do 5 things and I only have 2 actions to do it with. But here, when it's your turn, you will either take resources off one of the trade boat box yard things, I forget what they're called, but parts of the harbour, or you will utilise a building and potentially build them. So on your turn, you'll be thinking, well, I can't build that building, he's already got it, or, he's just taking all that fish. Well, you know what, I'm going to take all this wood because this will become useful. And so you feel like you're getting something useful, even if it wasn't your primary goal. So there's always some way to think, that your turn is not a complete waste. You do have that nefarious feed your people mechanic in this, and that's probably a small nitpick I have with this game. I'm not the biggest fan of the whole feed your people mechanic in games, and here it's a pretty big deal. You are going to have to feed your people every round, although it's not as hard to do it in this game as in some others. Occasionally you might have to beg for a little bit of money in order to do it, but for the most part you should be able to get enough food to feed your people, but it is not autopilot. You know, something like Caverna, for example, feeding your people in that is easy. I mean, I've never seen anybody take a negative point token for not feeding people in Caverna. Here I have. You can get yourself in a situation where feeding your people becomes a little bit problematic, particularly with more players, but generally you should be okay. You can play this between 1 to 5 players, and solo mode is actually good fun because you get all the different variety of buildings and you can try out lots of different strategies and have a good time. I quite enjoy playing this solo. In terms of when the player count goes up though, here's a bit of a problem, and this is going to lead on to the biggest issue I have with this game. 1 player solo is good fun. 2 player is pretty amazing. You know, 2 players is great. Back and forth, nice and quick. You all get a lot of actions to do each turn. Great. I don't often play this game with 2 players because, you know me, I don't often get 2-player games to the table, but I have tried it with 2. It worked very well with 2, so definitely a plus for that. 3 is my favourite way to play it though. 3 has a little bit of interaction, a little bit of competition, still quickish turns, and still enough to do on your turn. So if you exclude the solo mode, and the fact that I don't often get 2 players at the table, I'm really only playing this with 3 players. Because when you get to 4 and 5, oh my god. This game is a long game. You know, it's not a short game. I mean, you'd be lucky to get this done in 90 or less minutes, even with 2 players. With 3 players, you're definitely looking beyond the 2-hour mark. 4 or 5 players is just ridiculous. Now, you can play a short game variant in here, which sort of chops the game length a little bit. Most people I find that I end up playing with this, though, don't want to play the short game variant. They want to play the full game. And to be honest, if you want to get the full experience of that engine building thing, then you kind of want to play the full game. Of course, that makes it quite long. You're talking over 3 hours easily with 4 or 5 players. And it's not even just the length that bothers me. I mean, yeah, 3 hours. Some of you are like, oh, well, 3 hours, that's good. I don't mind sitting here for 3 hours. Yeah, play this with 4 or 5 players and then tell me that. Because the way that your turn order comes round is drastically different in feel from 3 players to 4 and 5. Because the idea is that you have a row where you place your boat out in turn sequence, and it keeps going in turn order, back and forth, loop to loop. And the way it happens is that when your boat is placed, you get to take your turn. But there's only, I think, 7 spots on that river where you can put your boat. So think of it this way. In a 2-player game, you're constantly going back and forth. So one of you is going to get 3 things to do on your turn, the other one's going to get 4. On 3 players, all of you are going to get at least 2 things to do on your turn, in a round, and one of you is going to get 3. So you're all on equal footing, except occasionally one of you will get a little bit extra, and it balances out. 4 players though. Imagine you go from the start. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all 4 players. 1, 2, 3. That means that if you're fortunate, you're getting 2 actions a turn, but sometimes you could be getting just 1. An entire round of play, all the building usage, all that downtime, for 1 action, and your 1 action could simply just be collect fish. That's it. That's pretty bad in 4. Now imagine it with 5. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 1 and 2. That means most of you are lucky enough to get 2 actions, and many times you'll only get 1. And that's just not fun. The downtime in this game goes ridiculous with 4 or 5 players, and I strongly recommend you do not get this game if you are the sort that likes to play Euros with a lot of players, because with 4 or 5 I will outright refuse to play this game. The downtime and length is just that bad. Solo is good fun, 2 players is also very good, and 3 players is the perfect way to play this. I mean, this is why it dropped off my top 100, because I found that the only way I was playing this game, other than solo mode, which isn't that often because I've got enough solo games as it is that are shorter than this, was 3 players. So I've only got 1 out of the 5 player counts that gets this game to the table on a more regular basis. And, you know, when you can only play a game with that fixed player count, it's going to hurt its rating a little bit. You know, I'm never going to play this with 4 or 5. 1, 2 or 3, that's it. End of discussion. But as long as you can avoid those player counts, you will get a great time with this. If you like resource management and if you like the whole thing of feed your people and building up this engine, because you'll start off with nothing, but then you'll eventually get some buildings and you'll be able to go, oh, well, if I get some of that and then put it into the kiln to make some charcoal, and then I can put the charcoal into this building and then make iron beads or something, I don't know, and then I'll ship them off for lots of points later. Your engine will build up and up and up as you go through the game, and if you're playing a full game, you're gonna achieve that engine. It's not like you get to the end and it's like, oh, well, I just built my engine, now the game's ended. No, you'll get to use it in action. Added to the variety is the special buildings, which, well, I got nothing against too much variety. You know, you can put too much variety in a game and I'll still be happy. It's when you have too little I don't like. But in this, you have the expansion, I believe, what do they call it? Don't think they mention it on this one. I forget its name. But there was a mini expansion of extra special buildings on top of what's in here. And this Mayfair version also comes with the promo ones as well. There are so many special buildings in this game. You only use, like 3 or 4 if you're lucky in the game, and sometimes you'll use less than that. So you will never run out of variety with the special buildings. But I do wish that more of them were used in the game. I find that too little of them are used in the game for the sake of, how many there are. But they are a cool way to swing your strategy in a different direction. I've had times where it's like, okay, I'm going to carry on this whole baker thing, and yeah, this is pretty good. Oh, and then a special building comes out that fits my strategy, even not perfectly, but it's like, oh, I could make use of that. Right, go grab it. And there's an extra incentive. Like I say, too much variety is not a problem. Unfortunately, you don't get any extra normal buildings, but because of the way that they come out at different times every game, it can change how the game progresses a lot. I mean, if you've got like certain buildings that require that particular resource or produce that resource miles late in the game, you'll then realize that that particular thing becomes like high value for the early part of the game. You know, all players are like, oh, I've got to grab it here because I'm not going to see it anywhere else. Great little twist with the buildings there. Other than that, though, the game is just pretty solid. Time length can be an issue. It is a long game. It is a heavy Euro. The Mayfair reprint, there's very little, if any, difference between this and the Z-Man version. I know that there's a little misprint on the board, which refers to starting setup. Unfortunately, the misprint also occurs in this one. So I urge you to just go from the rulebook or check the FAQ online. I think it's got something to do with how much certain resources you start with, but just follow the rulebook. The rulebook's correct, just ignore what the board says. Other than that, literally the only difference really with this and the Z-Man version is that the board is a fold-away board. Much better. The other one I think came in lots of pieces and it was all a bit cumbersome. Here you get a nice fold-away board, makes it more compact, easier to use and play, so definitely a plus. But yeah, if you've got the original Z-Man version, there's little to no reason why you need to pick up the Mayfair version. It is, as near as makes no difference, a straight-up reprint. Production quality is about the same. I haven't really noticed any difference between this and Z-Man. The cards feel the same, the tiles feel the same. It's, nothing particularly great. You're still using discs. These games seem to have a fascination with coloured discs for your players. I do wish you could use Meeples more often. Yeah, so, like I say, you don't need this if you have the old version. But if you don't have any of them, then, well, this is the one you can get now, and it's certainly worth your time if you enjoy Euro games and aren't going to play with a huge group on a regular basis. If it's just you and your spouse playing Euro games all the time, then by all means, go hunt this down, because I think you will love it. But yeah, large groups, avoid with a passion. 4 or 5 players you should not play this game with, unless you just love sitting there, twiddling your thumbs, waiting for something to happen. The last thing I'll say before I get to my final verdict is that you're going to want to invest in some kind of storage solution for playing this game. You get a lot of tokens in this, and I'll just put this down here a sec because I've got to show you what I've got, okay? You get a lot of these little tiny tokens that tell you what the resources are, grain, meat, and all that lot. Now, the best way, the most cost-effective way, is to grab a bunch of those little square tubs. You can get them in like Poundland and all those cheap shops, cost cutters, whatever you've got in your area, and they're great. Little plastic with a lid. You just get a bunch of them, and you can put them on the board in spots to hold all the tiles. Great. And it's certainly a good way to store the game because despite how big the box is, you find that there's actually quite a lot of air in here. This could have actually been a smaller box, funny enough. Me, like I say, I went a little bit mad at first. Daedalus Productions did a Le Havre insert a long time ago as part of their Kickstarter. I decided to get in on the action, and this was the start of my, shall we say, my tumbling down the rabbit hole in case of trying to build inserts. And I gotta say, this is a nice insert, but it's a little bit fiddly to get the lid on and off this, I have noticed. This is it's kind of a solution that I'm using because I have to, but yeah, come on, come out. There we go. So I've got a solution where, hopefully you can see this, there you go. So the tiles are all arranged in rows, and so is the money, and basically this can sit by the side of the board or on the middle of the board, and it works great for me. But of course, you do not need to go out of your way to get stuff like this. This was just something I was involved with when they did their original Kickstarter. Certainly, like I said, you want the most cost-effective way, just grab some small tubs and use them. You are not going to want to put this stuff in baggies. Believe me, you will have one messy table because this is a table hog and you're going to want to make it as compact as ever. So top tip, get some boxes, get some tubs and package this neatly. Don't resort to baggies, it will look messy. So my verdict for the Havre, it is a solid, heavy Euro with resource management and good variety. But it has a restrictive player count and it can go very long. And I do wish that maybe there was more of those special buildings in play when you use them in each game. It is still a solid game though, and I really do enjoy it. But I have to admit, like I said, it goes quite long and does have the restricted player count for me. So I'm giving the Havre probably the highest I can of 8 smoked fishes. It's a solid Euro. It could easily become a 9 if I could play it with more player counts, but at the restricted level of mainly 3, occasionally 2, the solo mode is a nice little boost, but it's a long Euro game, so solo mode's not always going to get played. I have to kind of make it 8. It could be a 9 though. It just wish it scaled better with more players because it really doesn't. But Le Havre is definitely in my collection. I still love it. This is still a quality Uwe Rosenberg game. And like I say, it just missed the top 100, but literally by 1 place. I mean, another game could shift off there and Le Havre would be straight back on it. And who knows, maybe it will resume its position on the top 100 at some point. I do legitimately enjoy this and think it's a great Euro. But like I said, restrictions, length, downtime, they're big factors for me. So that's Le Havre. If this takes your fancy, then go grab it. I think you'll enjoy it. That's it for me though. If you like what you see, then please subscribe to the YouTube channel or the podcast if you want to hear about other subjects. For now, that's it, and I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple episode. But remember, whether you're going to be making fish or bread or meat, whatever route you try to take, just make sure that A, you can swim, you are in a harbour, and B, that it's only a game. See you next time guys, and take care.